Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman.
Well, good morning and welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Reid Maus. I was born in the year of our Lord, 1996. I'm 205 pounds, and one time in high school, I came home hungover. My dad handed me a Marines brochure and said, "I think you need some structure." We never talked about it again. This is going to be an NFL show today because the NFL started, and it's beautiful. And on top of that, the prince that was promised, Joe Burrow, gets an extension. We come your way 10
A
to 12
P.
That's right. And you can find us on all platforms, podcasting platforms, the next morning. So this is Off the Bench. Obviously, I'm not Trace Fowler. Obviously, I'm not Tom Brenneman. I'm Reid Maus. I know I'm not your favorite here, but similar to what David Bell is having to do with the Reds, I'm just what you got at this point. I mean, everyone's on COVID. The whole bullpen, the whole rotation's gone. So I'm just what you're dealing with here today, but it's going to be a great show. At 10:10, in just a few minutes, we're going to have co-host of Cincinnati Bengals, Parker Blake. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. He's going to come back on, and we're going to talk about Joe Burrow's contract and the Bengals game that is this Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. We are just a couple of days from seeing Joe Burrow play football again. And that's not the only guest that we're going to have on the show. At 11:15, we're going to have one of my favorite content creators in the Bengals community. You might know him as the Bengals Boys. It's Alex Dolezal is going to come on here, and he's going to talk about his songs. If you haven't seen him already, we'll probably play one for you later on, and he's going to come on the show. Seriously, it's great. He comes out with a new song every single week. Themed towards whoever the Bengals are playing, themed to whatever happened to the Bengals the previous week, normally to some 80s or 70s pop hit. It's fantastic. So we're going to talk to Alex later on in the show. Guys, it was great news. Things we've been talking about for months, things we've been talking about all week. Joe Burrow's contract is finally done. He becomes the highest paid player in league history. A 5-year, $275 million extension, $220 million guaranteed. He joins Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson as other quarterbacks to sign an extension this year. And like I said, he surpasses Justin Herbert's previous record of becoming the highest paid player in league history. Not bad for a team that is once thought of as frugal. Not bad for a team that was once thought of as cheap. And we're going to talk about how the Bengals are constantly shedding their previous reputations seemingly every single day. The Detroit Lions got a win, and they proved that they might be for real as they took a win away from the reigning champ, Kansas City Chiefs, in Burrowhead Stadium. It was a game that I think Kadarius Toney might have been throwing. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And also, not only in NFL news, the Cincinnati Reds open up a 3-game series against the St. Louis Cardinals. It is a first series, 9 straight games against losing teams, so a chance for the Cincinnati Reds to really add on to their win totals. They are a half game out from the wild card. They are 4 games over 500. We're going to talk about what they need to do to get that final wild card spot. So we got a full show ready for you guys today. Sorry for scrambling. We put this together at the last thing. Trace is down at a bachelor party, and obviously Tom is where you know, but it looks like we are ready to go. We're going to introduce first off Elliot Rearing. Elliot, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Reid. It's really good to see you in the host chair today.
Yeah, it feels great.
It's really, really good.
I'm sure I haven't checked the comments. I'm sure they're nothing but positive.
Yep, Mouse Cop's doing very good in there with you, respecting you. It's a good day. Football was back last night. I was watching the game. I was very excited. And as I was watching the game, right away the Joe Burrow news breaks, which I mean, honestly, it doubled down on how great football is. It just, you have contract news about your franchise quarterback, and then boom, you get to watch a Thursday night game for the first time this season.
Did you love the pettiness of as they were literally dropping the banner?
It was very funny.
Out.
It was very funny. I think. How long do you think they've had that planned? Is the question. I bet that's been in the plans for 2 weeks. I think Zach Taylor and Schefter, they got together and they're like, you know what? We're going to release this in 2 weeks for the Thursday night game against the Chiefs when the Chiefs play the Lions.
Do you think literally Zach Taylor, Katie Blackburn, whoever dropped the news to Adam Schefter was like, All right, they're going to start doing the banners at about 8:15. It's 8:05. All right, let Adam Schefter know, and he'll get this news out right here.
It had to have been. There's no other way to do it. I mean, there's no way the Bengals let that leak right there unless it was intentional, unless it was planned. So they planned it. It was phenomenal. So it made the game far more enjoyable. But yeah, the only bad thing I did lose some money. I was gambling last night responsibly, of course.
You'll make more.
Betfred Sportsbook. It started off great. I bet on the first drive of that game. I bet on first drive punt. Got it. Boom, right away.
Great odds on Betfred for that.
Great odds. I hammered Marquez Valdez-Scantling over 44.5. Hammered it. Was great. And then after that, it was a disaster. I thought the Chiefs would win. I don't believe in the Lions. And to be fair to me, I mean, the Chiefs did kind of win. It was given away by the receiving core of Kansas City.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, speaking of the receiving core, I've got a hot take that I've got to rescind just a bit. And it has to do with quarterback play and what they need to be successful. I got to rescind a hot take that I've given out recently that after watching last night, I've no option but to rescind it. We also got Casey. Casey's fully out in Who Day gear. I love to see it. We are a few days from watching our beloved Cincinnati Bengals play the pigskin again.
Absolutely, Reid. And we have Joe Burrow until 2029. I am so happy. I'm just excited to have him here. And by the way, it was intentional. They knew
100%.
They knew the morning of. The whole team did. So I mean, it was intentionally announced at the banner drop. Very petty. I love it. Well deserved for Joe Burrow. I mean, we all knew that he was going to get a big contract. Now it's more about how's the structure? What does it look like? What is he going to get next year, the next few years? Do we have enough to still sign T. Higgins? I think we might have a chance to still sign him. There's still a couple days left before the start of the season. That's what I'm looking towards right now.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a minute. I believe Parker Blake is almost ready. But yeah, it's great. NFL football is back. There's nothing better. And you know what? We're 2 days away, as I mentioned previously, from seeing our Cincinnati Bengals in action. But this Sunday, if you need someone to watch it with, in the fourth quarter, you can watch it with the Cincinnati Bengals. We have one of the co-hosts of the Cincinnati Bengals, Parker Blake. Parker, how you doing, my guy?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How's it over there in the Mountain Time Zone? It's early over there.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock, and there's no better time of the day to celebrate a Joe Burrow extension than 8 o'clock in the morning, brother.
I'm sure everyone in Utah was dancing after the Joe Burrow news broke.
Oh, parties in the streets all over the place. It was madness. It was madness.
All right. Are you hosting this Sunday? I know it's just Eric, Game On, and then you. Who's hosting Cincinnati Bengals this Sunday?
Yes, sir. It's me and Game On this week, celebrating the first week of the season and this win over the Browns.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be, like I said, if you guys are familiar with Cincinnati Reds, how they started in the ninth inning, we're doing the exact same thing. If you need someone to watch it with in about midway through the fourth quarter, I assume the Bengals will be up by 40 or 50 at that point, so there won't be a whole lot of excitement. But Parker Blake and Game On will have you this Sunday. All right, Parker, let's get into this. Joe Burrow becomes the highest paid player in NFL history. What is your immediate reaction from the deal?
Well, I mean, I think first off, that's what we expected, right? We didn't think he was going to get anything less than Herbert got. And honestly, 55 felt like the reasonable number, especially for a 5-year extension. I know we were all pushing for, sign that 7-year deal, sign that 10-year deal, but I think we all knew that wasn't going to happen. So I think first reactions is obviously we finally freaking got it done. And we got it done for a good number that I don't think was way too high. And obviously, he wasn't going to take this crazy team-friendly deal like everyone talked about. But I think, over what it could have been, I think it is very friendly. It's barely higher than Herbert's, and I think that's great. And I think now everyone's attention is just like, well, is T getting done or is it not getting done?
Yeah, I was reading James Rapine's article, friend of the show, about how this gives flexibility to get a T. Higgins deal done. And you know what? That brings me into my next question. Detractors, naysayers, haters, whatever you want to call them, the second this deal was done, the first thing they said, and maybe it's a fair criticism, is, now you're paying your quarterback, now the roster's going to shrink. Now you're not going to have a great roster. And maybe that criticism's fair. I mean, it's obviously much easier to put a competitive roster together when you don't have that much money given out to one player. But, I mean, Do you think that criticism fair? What were the Cincinnati Bengals supposed to do? Not pay Joe Burrow, the man who has so much to this city and has taken them to 2 AFC championships and a Super Bowl?
Yeah, no, you pay that man, and they did, which is awesome. And I think what we have to remember, keep in mind, is this isn't going to hit for 3 years. He still has this season. He still has next season before the big cap hits really start coming. And I think someone posted that it really doesn't even get over 40. It doesn't break that 50 mark annually until 2027. So I'm not too concerned about the short term of it. I think it's still going to give them plenty to work around. And as we all know, the cap's going up every single year. So there's going to be space to work. It's just about what they're willing to do as an organization and what these players want as, players and kind of maximizing their earnings potential. So that's kind of the questions that you have to start thinking about now. It's really just how much do these players want to get paid and how much does the front office value them?
All right, I'm going to ask you to put your Nostradamus hat on now. I'm going to ask you to put on your guessing hat. Do you believe that a deal gets done, an extension gets done for T. Higgins? We already assume that Jamar Chase is going to get extended somewhere down the line, but we don't have to worry about that right now. The big deal is T. Higgins. Do you think the Bengals will get an extension for T. Higgins? And if so, do you think it'll get done before they take a snap on Sunday?
I think, the Bengals fan in me wants to say, yes, it's going to get done. They just got Joe done. They're going to get T done, today or tomorrow, and then we're going to come into Sunday and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great vibes. We're going to go in and beat the Browns by 70 points, and then we're just going to get out of there, a happy little family. But I really do think it's tight. If they don't get it done today or tomorrow, I don't think it gets done this year. And that's where I think that's the big question mark, right? If it doesn't get done today or tomorrow, I don't think it gets done this year. And that's where we start looking at, are they going to tag him? What is the future for T. Higgins? So I really just think we all have to say our prayers and manifest it that it happens today or tomorrow, and then we can go in, get this big win Sunday, and have a great season. But I honestly, I don't think it does get done this weekend.
Yeah, it just seems like it's too short of a time span, and they're putting the final screws together for the game plan this Sunday. Man, wouldn't that be a week? Get Joe Burrow extended, get T. Higgins extended, and then you beat your in-state rival, the Cleveland Browns, in week 1 of the season. Man, we could only win.
And the 100th Battle of Ohio. The 100th Battle of – what a legendary weekend.
I imagine. We got to be up in that series, right? Are the Bengals?
It's 100. This one's 100.
Yeah, but I imagine win-loss wise.
Oh,
we've got to be up.
Yeah.
Got to be.
Yeah. Someone posted that the other day.
The dumbest thing that Cleveland Browns fans do, I don't think it's funny. I guess it gets under my skin a little bit, which is I guess the point, is when they call Cincinnati Kentucky. I don't think it's funny. I don't get it. I get that the airport's in Kentucky. I mean, they have a lake border and then we have another state. I just don't understand the whole bit, I guess. It's just stupid to me.
That's always been a weird one to me.
Yeah. All right. So going back to the Joe Burrow contract, the naysayers, everyone that has hated the Bengals, there's been plenty of criticism over the Bengals, over the franchise history. They can't win in big games. This team just means nothing to the grand aspect of the NFL, despite winning 6 division titles in the hardest division in the sport. But the one thing that has always been true up until recently was that the Bengals are cheap, right? You go into Paul Brown, now Paycor Stadium, and there's not a whole lot of pomp and circumstance. It's pretty much just a football field and a stadium. Not the prettiest stadium. Didn't have an indoor facility despite being in the north. For the longest time, would never go out and extend guys, would never go out and get these franchise or free agents. But in the past few years, they've gone out. They drafted Joe Burrow. They've surrounded him with a roster by getting plenty of free agents that can win. They've made upgrades to the stadium. And now the cheap team, the team that is everyone calls is super frugal, has signed the man to the biggest contract in league history. Do you think we can start getting away, shooing away, saying that the Bengals are cheap? All the detractors that say the Bengals are just this terrible franchise because they're cheap, that can go away at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've shown that they've changed, right? I mean, they paid Orlando. They just paid Joe Burrow. And it's not like they haven't paid quarterbacks in the past, but we've seen how they've invested in the line. We've seen how they've invested in free agents on the defense. I just feel like we're starting to work away from that, and that's where I'm really interested to see how they handle T and Jamar. Because if we can get both of those locked in, then I really think we've now the Bengals of old are gone. We're officially the new Bengals, and so that's
Right.
where I'm excited to see how these deals work out. But I think they've shown that they're willing to do things differently than they've done in the past. They've been guaranteeing more. They've been spending a little bit more money in free agency, and that's where I have hope that they will do what we want them to do. But it's also there's still a couple things that we need to see them do before we can really be like, yeah, like we're really committed to this. We're doing this.
Yeah, I can think of one thing that the Bengals need to do before we can get fully on. All right, so you're an offensive line guy, and before we start talking about the Bengals-Browns games, did you watch the game last night? Did you watch the
I
Thursday
did
football?
watch the game last night.
Jawan Taylor, right? That's his name, the right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Jawan Taylor.
sir.
What in the world was my man doing out there?
Well, according to Collinsworth, he was lining up as a slot receiver. So,
How funny was
but
it?
yeah, I mean, there's always been that conversation around jumping the snap and getting that early go, and I mean, every tackle around the league does it. You've seen guys like Duke Manyweather talk about it on Twitter, and everyone talked about it with Jonah last year, how he was jumping the snap and how he should have been getting called for false starts, and that's something that just happens in these guys, and that's where, as an O-line guy, I feel like I have the sympathy for them where you're going backwards, you're playing this guy that's a higher level athlete than you. I'm okay if we're getting off right at the snap. I mean, you work all offseason to time that, and if you just go watch the ball. I mean, you gotta also remember it's a live call. Penalties, they're not reviewing these, and so when you're running it back in like super slow motion, maybe he's like a millisecond before the ball goes, and that's really just getting ticky tacky. They're not watching the replays on these. I mean, they could try to emphasize it, but the biggest issue I had wasn't with leaving early and the alleged false starts, but it was the fidgetiness before the snap, and he just kind of never really felt like he got set, especially Jawan Taylor. And then he, has far back as the right tackle and left tackle for the Chiefs were lined up. You have to cover the center. I actually ran into that problem all offseason with my guys. We lined up a little setback like that, and we got in trouble at our camp this year. We had to really adjust that and really focus on making sure we're covering the center. And all that means is your head has to cover the center's hip, essentially, has to be at the center's belt line. And they were lined up, significantly behind the center, and that's technically you're lined up in the backfield. Should lead to an illegal formation call. Just a lot of, there was a lot to unpack there. But we finally got a false start call in the fourth quarter, so we got something.
Objectively funny on 4th and 20 with the game on the line. They finally call the false start call. Drew Garrison with a $5 super chat shouting out you. I'm so proud of you, Parker, says Drew Garrison. So a little love from Drew.
I appreciate you, Drew. I appreciate you. You know that, though.
All right, let's talk about the Bengals and Browns. What is your biggest story, your biggest takeaway as we head into week 1?
Yeah, I think the big story of the game is going to be the Bengals O-line versus the Browns D-line, and then the Bengals receivers versus the Browns defensive backs, right? When that's where we need to see how this, even though there wasn't as much change going on the offensive line for the Bengals, we have to see how the chemistry works with these new tackles and how this new unit looks. I think we all agree that it should be the best line that Joe Burrow's ever seen in the NFL. But how does that, stack up to a defensive line featuring a guy like Myles Garrett and then a guy like Za'Darius on the other side who is a higher level pass rusher? And just kind of what are they going to do? I talked about this a little bit. I don't think they upgraded the front seven, as much as Browns fans think they have. I think there's still a lot to be proven, just like there is on the Bengals O-line. So I feel like if they can come in and if they can find a way to run the ball early and attack Myles Garrett, like I've said, every time they've matched up against Myles Garrett, if you can attack Myles Garrett in the run game, I feel like it's going to open up things for you long term. And then I think we all know kind of the bigger story out of the Browns defensive backfield, but I'm really interested to see how they can hang with, probably the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. So,
yeah, Joe Burrow has two things going against him this week. One is that he's 1-5 in the first 2 weeks of the season in his career. He is also, obviously, as Browns fans like to point out our way, not had a good track record against the Cleveland Browns. Are you worried? I mean, he didn't get any snaps preseason. Are you worried about any rust from Joe Burrow shaking off here in week 1?
I mean, I think you're going to shake off the rust, but I also think if you're able to play, everyone is scared of the word conservative game, but if you play conservative in the fact that you're running the ball, you're making the easy throws, and you're trying to get your offense in a rhythm early in the game, I feel like they can really open some stuff up late because people always forget you're spending the first half of the game, trying to feel out what the other defense is doing, and especially in these early weeks, you're trying to knock that rust off, get your offense, working together and getting in that rhythm. See if you can get that going early, and you're going to open up these shots and like bigger plays in the second half of the game. That's why the second half of games are so exciting. And so if they're able to really work on their, like I said, their run game, quick game stuff, I would love to see some nice play action shots and really show that we can give Burrow time and we can let him sit back there and really just get excited as Bengals fans what this new offensive line's doing and get back to the 9-1, the 9-5 connection that we're all excited to see this season. So if we can be patient as fans, and hopefully the Bengals come out a little, not slow, but conservative play calling wise, and they're just trying to feel out, try and see what this whole Browns team has. They're new on both sides of the ball. They have a whole new defense. They're changing the offense. So let's just let the Browns make some mistakes early, capitalize off those mistakes, and then just let it rock in the second half.
Yeah, that's been the one criticism I think people have had over the Bengals is they seem to start out slow last year multiple times and, conservative play calling. But you got to remember, a conservative play calling with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins is quite different than a conservative play call from, say, the Atlanta Falcons or the Carolina Panthers. So it's a bit different of a thing over here in Cincinnati. So they'll be fine. I think the offense, I think Joe Burrow will be okay this Sunday. It's going to be a great game because obviously it's the toughest division in sport. The Cleveland Browns have a great roster. They just can't seem to get away from being the Browns, but maybe they will. Deshaun Watson is a Pro Bowl quarterback, and now he's got a full season of preseason, and he's going to get underneath his belt. I think they'll be just fine. All right, who do you think is going to get more excited this Sunday watching the game live with our Chatterbox fans, with Nutcutter Nation? You or Game On?
Oh, I'll tell everybody it's going to be Game On. Game On brings that juice, man. I'm just here trying to match the energy. And I will say, that third preseason game, that's probably the most meaningless game in the entire NFL season, is that third preseason game. And I think we were both hyped up after that game. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like coming into the end of this Browns game, man.
It's going to be
Game
awesome.
On's going to bring the juice.
All right, you got to match that juice. You got to match it.
I do.
So I
do.
anticipate that. All right, so you guys will be live midway through the fourth quarter. Parker Blake, thank you for coming on. We're excited for Chatterbox Bengals, the first regular season game under Chatterbox Bengals. Thank you for coming on, Parker.
Can't wait, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep. See you, brother. Yeah, I'm excited for that. It's one thing, baseball, I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. And, Trace and Kirby do a fantastic job getting excited watching the ninth inning. But, man, football is just a different beast, and the NFL consistently shows that the final fourth quarter, it comes down to that. So I'm just so excited for Chatterbox Bengals and everything this Sunday. All right, guys. Elliot, Casey, let's get into Joe Burrow's contract. When we just heard from Parker Blake, I mentioned James Rapine, who was writing some articles, no free ads, but Sports Illustrated was talking about how this can possibly open up the doors to get a T. Higgins deal done. And I think Parker Blake is correct. We might see a deal done by the kickoff this Sunday. But if it doesn't get done, I think the contract extension talks are going to shut down. I think once football starts, that's just what it is. It's going to be football. Casey, Elliott, do you think that there's any chance that T. Higgins deal gets done now?
I think it gets done before the season, like you said. If it comes to a point where he does not have a contract week one, which is this Sunday, I don't think I just don't think it happens during the middle of the season. I think these guys are open about focusing on football, focusing on the season, opposed to having the drama surrounding a contract. I think it's great that Joe got his. I think it shows a commitment to our quarterback. It shows a commitment to winning. It shows a commitment to, this plan has been set forth as soon as we drafted Joe Burrow, right? It's a new Bengals era. I have the number in front of me, by the way, for the last contract we signed, quarterback. Andy Dalton in 2014 received a 6-year, $96 million extension. That is 6 years, $96 million. It only came with $17 million guaranteed.
Yeah, someone said, I read an article this morning that said this guarantee of $220 million, $219.01 or whatever it is, so like $10,000 on top of $219.
Yeah, it's wild.
Is 10 times the biggest contract or guaranteed money that the Bengals have put out there. It's amazing.
It's going to change. It's going to change everything. I think the Bengals this season. I am higher on the Bengals this year than I was last year. I think a Super Bowl hangover, like Trace said, Trace mentioned it yesterday. I think that is kind of real. I think there's a lot of expectations that are put on you coming into the next season after getting to a Super Bowl. I'm not going to say everybody's down on the Bengals. I think there's a narrative out there that the world is down on the Bengals. I think that's kind of nonsense. I mean, people are picking the Bengals to get to a Super Bowl left and right this year. The difference is I think it's kind of a quiet respect everybody's sharing for the Bengals. It's not Patrick Mahomes is the greatest and everything he does is magic. I think you're looking at a team that is complete. I think it's better than last year. And I think they can make a run at it. And if Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs can't figure out their passing situation, they're done. I mean, they are done if they can't. If Kadarius Toney's going to go out there and drop 7 balls every game, they're not going to win games. I mean, that's just a fact. They should have won last night. They did everything right except for having receivers that were able to catch footballs. I mean, that was it. Sky Moore, I didn't believe he had a catch until the second half. So, yeah, I think the Bengals have a very good chance. The AFC East. You look at that. I don't think the Bills are what they were. I think they're a good team. But now you add the Jets, who I think are going to be competitive. I think the Dolphins are going to be competitive. I think it's a lot of teams eating each other right now. I think the Bengals are better than the 3 teams in our division. I think the Steelers, as much as we want to say they're sleepers, and Mike Tomlin has yet to have a losing season. People forget about that. That's a stat you never hear. I just don't think anybody in the division can touch the Bengals right now. Assuming that they stay healthy, assuming everything happens perfectly like we imagine it will be, I think the Bengals are going to go to a Super Bowl this year. It's not really a hot take. It's just a regular take. I think they're good. And I think this contract extension for Joe Burrow, it just solidifies that. I think you're going to see one for T. Higgins eventually. Again, I don't think if it's not done before Sunday, it's not getting done, right? I don't think not this season at least. I think it'll be in the offseason when they re-sign T. Higgins.
Yeah, it'll probably be like a 3-year deal if they do. For what it's worth is, at the very minimum, the Bengals will have T. Higgins for this year and next year because of
the tag.
Yeah, the franchise tag.
Did you think it was going to be more? When I saw the first number, so it's 5 years, $275 million, 219 of it's guaranteed. I thought it was going to be a 300. I thought we were going to.
So you were happy? You thought
I was very happy.
You think he's underpaid?
I do think he's underpaid. I do think he's underpaid. When I was talking to my buddies last night, and we were literally talking about it when it happened. Are we prophets? I don't know. I really can't say, but maybe. But we were talking about it, and I'm like, I think he's going to be the first quarterback to get that $300 million in 5 years. I think it's just going to be a massive contract. All this stuff about team-friendly deals, nonsense. But when I saw 275, I'm like, it's Herbert-esque. Granted, 220 of it's guaranteed, pretty much. So it's a lot of money, but at the same time, I think he could have asked for more, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Right, yeah, he probably could have. He probably, we talk about the blank check, he probably could have asked for a blank check, and there's been like, sure, whatever. I mean, what are we going to do? Not extend Joe Burrow. Luckily, they were able to come to grips. And, I mean, the timing of it, we already talked about it earlier, the timing of it was just beautiful. I mean, they're dropping the banners, and Adam Schefter tweets out that Joe Burrow gets the highest paid extension in team history. You are right about something, though. I still see some people going, they're doubting the Bengals. People are doubting. No one's doubting the Bengals. Last year they were. Truly last year. After the Bengals Super Bowl run, we were going into the season, and a lot of media heads were talking about how the Bengals aren't going to win the AFC North after winning the AFC North and going to the Super Bowl. That was silly. The Bengals showed after going 0-2, they were writing themselves, they're not even going to make the postseason. What a Super Bowl hangover. And there they were, a few plays away from making it back to the Super Bowl. So the Bengals, I mean, they keep defying expectations. First it was Joe Burrow shouldn't go to the Bengals because they're losers, despite, like I said, them being right there with the Ravens in competitiveness in the AFC North since the AFC North in its current format. And then they're like, well, they won't put any guys around them, despite them exactly doing that, them getting a defensive unit, them consistently signing free agents for the offensive line and shoring up the offensive line. Oh, yeah, they had a miracle run, but the Bengals won't continue this. Well, what did they do? After starting 0-2, they make it all the way back to the AFC Championship. They didn't lose a game from October 31st until the AFC Championship. Oh, well, now they won't sign Joe Burrow the money he deserves. We're sitting here talking about how he deserves more. So the Bengals continuously are showing the doubters, the naysayers, that they're not the Bengals of old anymore. I think yesterday Kirby and Elliott were fighting in the chat about franchises' histories don't matter. They do. They very much do. But you can overturn it. It's not a concrete plan. Casey.
Yeah.
This contract extension. We get Joe Burrow till 2029.
I know. It's music to my ears. I mean, we've got him. We will have had him for almost over 10 years by the time that contract is over. And to be fair, Elliott, over the next 7 years, he's going to make $316 million.
Yep.
So, did I say 3 or 7?
316. So we
Yeah,
get about
so
45 a year going forward.
Right. So, I mean, he's making that big money, and rightfully so. The question really comes down to, like we've been talking about, do you get Higgins? Do you sign Higgins? Or do you sign a deal with Reeder? Or do you extend Jonah? Those are the questions right now. I think long term, I think short term people really want to keep Higgins, right? He's a number one receiver. He definitely deserves to get a big contract somewhere, and we want him here in Cincinnati. But how do you pay Chase then? So they're in a tough predicament. What are your thoughts, Reid? Do you want to, if you had to choose between Chase and Higgins, I'm assuming you're obviously choosing Chase.
Yeah, I mean that's I think earlier this week we talked about who's the odd man out, and it's pretty simple. I mean, Jamar Chase is probably the second best wide receiver in the league. He's top 3 for sure. And T. Higgins is top 10, top 5. I mean, he's right there. He's an elite receiver. On most teams, he's a number 1, and they will be talking about him for decades to come. But it just so happens that he plays on the same team as Jamar Chase. So if you're asking me who I want to extend, it's obviously Jamar Chase. He just adds an incredible element to the game in so many facets. He's simply incredible. If you're asking me, if I want to, I mean, if it's possible, if the flexibility is there to get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and then say we don't extend guys on the defensive side like Awuzie, like DJ Reeder or Jonah Williams, then that answer is almost as easier as the previous. Is almost easier to answer than the previous one. I want T. Higgins over those guys because what the Bengals have shown in recent years is they've been very good. To win in the NFL, you need a few things. First and foremost, you need a quarterback. The Bengals have that. The second most important thing you need to do is there's this thing called the NFL draft. It makes the league very even. The salary cap does it too, but it makes so much parity in the league. And if you draft well, you put your team in a beautiful position to win for decades. That's quite honestly why the Steelers have won for a while. That's why, Belichick and the Patriots did it because they had Tom Brady. They didn't draft so well. But as long as you're drafting well, your roster is going to be fine. And the Bengals have already shown strides to, shoring up the defense through the draft. It's the blueprint has been there. First, they got Joe Burrow. Then they gave him weapons. And then they said, all right, we're going to go free agency on the line. And on the defensive side, that's where we're going to go in the draft. They went with a pass rusher in the first round. They got Cam Taylor-Britt last year in the second. I mean, this continuously seems to be the model that the Bengals are going after. Let's keep drafting on the defense. And if they keep hitting, what are we worried about? Seriously, if the Bengals continuously get these draft picks and keep hitting on these draft picks, these early round draft choices, what in the world are you worried about from signing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, these are elite guys on the offensive side of the ball. Offense wins. So does that answer the question that you asked?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of insinuating that the Bengals, they are really good at drafting receivers, really good at drafting defensive backs. They've been nailing a lot of their early picks as of late. But they struggle in the offensive line and defensive line department. Mm-hmm. And their track record as of late, especially on the offensive line, has been horrible. And they gotta figure out something with the right tackle this next year. Like, they're going to have to try to find someone. It's either going to be Jonah Williams long-term, or it's going to be Collins long-term, or they got to find someone outside. And I don't think anyone's really clamoring for either one of those guys. So, I mean, I think you're looking outside. And are you going to try to draft a guy? I don't know. I don't like those chances. I'd rather have that money to go get a guy that's solid at right tackle, because you're going to have Chase. You're going to be able to sign Chase at that point. Like, you're going to have the money to make sure that you have him,
Right.
and you're not worried about, can we have Higgins and Chase? I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I just that part worries me.
Yeah, that's once again going back to the draft. That's why the draft is so important, because when you're trying to compete and you miss on a draft choice, then you got to go out and spend money. That's what the Bengals did on the offensive line. You know, they get Jackson Carman and Jonah Williams, who don't seem up to snuff on where we drafted them. So what do you got to do? You got to go out and fulfill the line in other ways. So if it becomes apparent that the Bengals can't get secondary guys, if it becomes apparent that they can't draft defensive line guys, then yeah, that's just – it comes down to the draft. Everything else falls out from there. So when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, the first thing they needed to do is done. They got Joe Burrow extended till 2029. And it truly is so funny that the second you get on X.com, Twitter.com, whatever you want to call it, and you immediately go, oh, here go the Bengals. They're going to stink for the next 7 years because Joe Burrow gets paid too much. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Yeah, it makes it harder, but they're going to be fine. Because you know why? I hold this take near and dear to my heart. When you got a quarterback, you're going to win ball games. I think it was a few weeks ago that Trace sat up here and was talking about the Cleveland Browns, and he said, yeah, if Deshaun Watson is a top 10 quarterback, then the Cleveland Browns will be vying for a quarterback or vying for a playoff spot. Duh. If you have a top 10 quarterback, you're always going to be vying for a playoff spot. That's literally how it works. The Kansas City Chiefs last night had no one to throw the ball to, and they still lost by a point to the team that everyone has dubbed NFC North champs and 15 wins and number one seed in the NFC, Detroit Lions. And they gave that game to them. You were talking about Sky Moore. Yeah, he didn't catch a pass. He didn't catch a pass in the entire game. Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, 8 targets, 1 reception for 1 yard.
Did he have a rush then? And what was I don't want to talk too much about last night's game, but they kept doing these end around things. Yeah. These little what are we doing? They had like 2nd and 1 4 times yesterday, and they did that end around thing that they do, where they just start shuffling the ball to wide receivers and everybody else back there, and it just doesn't work. It hasn't worked. I mean, it's part of the Chiefs' magic, but I think it was like they were on the goal line, and it was he flipped it to. Mahomes flipped it to McKinnon. McKinnon flipped it back to Mahomes, and then Mahomes flipped it to like Tony or someone, and he got stopped short of the goal line again. It was just crazy. The play calling last night was great, and by the way, this is the first game they've played, the Kansas City Chiefs, without Eric Bieniemy during this Super Bowl era here for them. So, Cubs or not Cubs, Bears guy. Head coach for the Bears failed.
Not Ditka.
Not Ditka. Casey, help me.
Lovie Smith?
No, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs right now. He was the head coach.
Who's
Casey? Football guy. All right, never mind. Names. But yeah, he's a bum.
Matt Nagy.
Who is it?
Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy. There it is. Matt Nagy. If Matt Nagy is going to be calling their plays this year, which it appears he will be, they're in trouble. And I was against Casey's call and Trace's call yesterday, where they're like, I don't know, it might not be the Chiefs' year. I think they're right. I think that, I mean, if Patrick Mahomes is unable to throw to any of the receivers, this is going to be a problem. And the Chiefs, and again, they won that game. All they had to do was just literally be able to complete one pass, and they couldn't do it. It just couldn't happen. Nobody was able to make a play.
See, you were really down on the Chiefs. I don't know. I know they lost last night, but I'm not really all that concerned, because once they get Travis Kelce back, I think they'll be okay. And they already said that he might be back already next week. So
he certainly. But Casey, they lose the deep threat completely.
Oh no, I understand what you're saying. Like they've lost a part of their offense. that they used a lot in previous years. But last year they were dinking and dunking. I mean, it was the lowest yardage average thrown for Patrick Mahomes last year. I mean, they've turned into the dink and dunk machine, and they are very efficient at it. Now, what happened last night was that Juwan Taylor was pretty much telegraphing exactly what they were going to do, if it was going to be a pass play or a run play, because he was lining up either at slot receiver or he was putting his hand in the dirt and getting ready to maul someone. And I think that they ended up starting to they started to key on that, and that's what happened. That's what made it so that they weren't able to do those end arounds where they were getting blown up in the run game. That's got to change. If that doesn't change, they're in trouble. But again, Chris Jones comes back. That's the middle of their defense. That run game.
I mean, for what it's worth, the defense played fine. The defense played fine.
Did play well. Defense did play well.
They gave up 14 points. One of them was an interception. That wasn't Patrick Mahomes' fault. So I think the Chiefs are good. I'm not saying they're not good. I just think they're in trouble if Patrick Mahomes is unable to throw to anybody. Mr. Mo with a super chat, by the way, he says play calling wasn't the issue. The issue was no one could catch a pass downfield, and that's certainly true. I mean, I would say going for it on 4th and 25 from your own 30 was a questionable play call, but to each their own, I guess.
With 2-minute warning
correct.
and 3 timeouts. That was with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they're just like, I mean, yeah.
That was wild. Down 1 point, all you have to do. You saw what they did against the Bills 2 years ago when it took 1 play to get down to the other side of the field in 10 seconds. So it was 4th and 20. It was a false start. 4th and 25. I'm like, all right, they're punting. Then I see Mahomes on the screen. He's like, let's run it back. And Andy Reid, why is Andy Reid going to question Patrick Mahomes? He's the greatest of all time. So they sent him back out there on 4th and 25 from their own 30. And by the way, the ball should have been caught, and it should have probably been a first down.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's crazy. I disagreed with a lot of the play calling, but who am I? I'm not a Super Bowl winning coach.
It is funny when the Chiefs are doing what the Chiefs do best under Eric Bieniemy last few years, and they're doing. You've seen the highlights of them running in circles, doing ring around the posy, and then running up to the line and doing some double reverse, kick it through the air, and then catch it through the dirt or some crazy play, some dumb play. And then every other team's like, why can't my offensive coordinator be this original? And then I believe remember the Bengals did a shovel pass last year on the goal line, and we were trying like that was literally trying to add an element of just copying what the Chiefs do. They do it with Travis Kelce, little shovel pass. The problem is when those plays don't work, like the end around, when all these things don't work, it looks pretty freaking silly. It looks pretty dumb. It's all about, can you get the play done or not? And multiple times last night, they couldn't get the play done. I don't know what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were supposed to do. And the take that I alluded to earlier that I was going to rescind is I truly believed before last night that if you have an elite quarterback, the rest of it will fall into place. And I think I know I get killed for this. But I think Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. And he had quite literally no one to throw it to last night. And now I realize, yeah, you need a guy. So many times, instead of those end arounds on 2nd and short, that would be the perfect opportunity to go, hey, Travis Kelce, we're going to throw it to you right here. Get us the first down. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, first down. That's when you need it. You got to have an elite receiver. That's now the motto. So I'm sorry for ever saying I was wrong. I'm sitting here saying I was wrong. You need someone to pass it to. I guess that's what Green Bay Packers fans were yelling for years and years about Aaron Rodgers, is he can't do it himself. And still, Patrick Mahomes almost did it himself last night against a team that I think is going to be in the postseason. I think everyone thinks he's going to be in the postseason.
Yeah. I think if Mahomes had played a perfect game, right, like the perfect game where he's not missing deep throws, where he didn't just miss a guy out in the flat, where, I think he actually wins that ball game, which says a lot about Mahomes. This whole time I said, I was really looking forward to seeing how he played this game to determine whether or not he really is like the greatest of all time. Mm-hmm. He didn't get the W, but man, he might as well have. I mean, he literally, the game was just completely destroyed by the receiving core. That's all that we really should be talking about was how bad Kadarius Toney was, because it was horrible.
We watched Joe Burrow get sacked 9 times a game for 3 years now. Have you ever seen a player play as bad as Kadarius Toney that wasn't a quarterback on the football field?
No, never. Never in my entire life have I seen an NFL player drop that many passes, cause a horrible turnover, and it was like they just kept trying. Like, they just kept trying to go back to him. Like, at some point, you need to realize this guy is not mentally there tonight. Like, just sit him on the bench. We'll get him next time, Tiger. I mean,
John Ross is pretty close. John Ross is pretty bad.
In one game?
He was never that bad, but John Ross is pretty bad. John Ross dropped some footballs now.
I mean, that the pick six, I think Derby Stardom just brought it up, Mahomes looked like Prescott, pick six. I mean, that was right in his hands. I mean, it was a perfect throw.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And it just ended up 6 points for the other team. And they lose by 1. I don't know. And yeah, you could say that the Lions had a fumble in the red zone. Lions were a fumble. We're going to keep that super chat up on the screen.
No, we're good.
Hey, Mr. Mo getting his money worth. Thank you, Mr. Mo, he was right. I know we already talked about that.
And we're not discrediting the Lions. I think the Lions
are going to be a great team.
I think the Lions played a great game. I was wrong about the Lions. I'm ready to say I was wrong. I think they're going to be better than I think they are. I still don't believe in them. I still don't believe in the Detroit Lions. I mean, they've given me nothing to believe in them for the past 35 years.
Franchise histories matter.
Franchise histories do matter, Kirby. Believe it or not, they do. But the Lions played well. I think Jared Goff was serviceable last night. David Montgomery was good. I thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be more involved. He was not, but that's okay. I mean, he did his job last night. He averaged, I think he averaged like 5 yards a carry. So, yeah, I think the Lions are good. I think they have some guys in the receiving corps that are going to make a difference. Josh Reynolds was good down the stretch of that game. I think he had 80 yards, and then most of it was all in the second half, just getting chunk plays after chunk plays. But yeah, it was a great game. It was a great way to start. I am looking forward to see what happens with Kansas City. I want the collapse.
I think we all do.
I want the collapse of Kansas City, and I think it can happen. If they start like 0-4 or 0-3, something like that, I'm going to write them off. I'm going to cancel them. I'm going to dun chain them right here on this show. I'm going to cancel the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think Travis Kelce, awesome. He's going to catch 15 passes a game for 150 yards every single game when he's healthy. But if you're unable to complete a ball for 25 yards, which is what Patrick Mahomes is able to do on a consistent basis, you're not going to win many ball games. You're just not going to do it. I think the running game looked bad last night for Kansas City. They were doing 3 guys again, Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and McKinnon. I think they have to figure that out. I think the Lions have a great front, obviously, a great defense. But, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with Kansas City, if I'm going to be honest.
Quick buy or sell. Buy or sell. Kansas City Chiefs win the AFC West.
Sell. I'm going to sell it. Week 1 overreaction. I'm selling. I'm taking the Chargers now. We're all in on the Chargers. It's the Chargers' year until they lose to the. I don't know. I don't have the Chargers schedule off the top of my head, but I'm sure they play a bum team.
They play the Chiefs twice.
They do play the Chiefs
twice. The Broncos twice. And the Raiders twice.
Chiefs weren't good, so we'll see.
They lost by a point, despite literally having no one to throw it to. Casey, buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm buying. I'm buying that. They're going to be fine. Travis is going to come back next week. Chris Jones will be back by week 8. And if their defense played the way it did last night against like one of the top 5 offenses last year, they'll be all right. They'll be okay.
I think I saw my favorite comment that has ever. I get a lot of hate up here, and it's well warranted. I tease a lot. I accept it. Just what it is. Swaggy Plague says Reid is the greatest pre-pubescent 43-year-old host this show has ever seen. Listen, it's weird what you got here. I got a dirt stash that you guys are big fans of, as I see in the chat. I look like I'm 35. I'm only 27. I talk like I'm 17. So it's weird. It's weird what's going up here in the host chair. I love it though. I love all the love that you guys. We'll call it love. What you guys are giving me today.
Do the Chiefs win next week? Jaguars in Jacksonville. Assuming they don't have Chris Jones, assuming they don't have Travis Kelce.
They looked fine without Chris Jones, for what it's worth.
I agree.
I mean, until that final drive when David Montgomery punched it in and they had a few rushes for the touchdown and first downs. Up until that point, the Chiefs' defense looked great. I don't know if they got worn out. I don't know what happened if the Lions changed their game plan all of a sudden and did different blocking schemes or what happened there. They looked great without Chris Jones. Like, you never once wondered where Chris Jones was, well, mainly because they showed you at the beginning of the broadcast. But do you think they looked fine without Chris Jones? I mean,
yeah,
obviously,
I thought they looked fine. I thought they looked like they were. I don't know who the backup is for Chris Jones, but he had a really good game. I was like, is that Chris Jones out there, just in a different jersey? No, they look great out there. I don't think that defense needs a Chris Jones to be successful. That defense is predicated on exotic blitzing and just a lot of stunts and twists, and they were really good at it. And they showed last night why they're a Super Bowl defense. I mean, they did just enough to win the game, and I think they'll be fine. Now, against the Jags, what the question was about the Jags, I don't think they win that ball game if Kelsey and Jones aren't there. The Jags, to me, are they could be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, with Calvin Ridley coming back, they retooled some of their defense. I mean, they've got a two-headed monster at the edge position, and we just saw how bad their tackles played last night. I mean, that's a tougher challenge than the Lions. So if you're asking me if they're going to win without Kelsey, I don't think they do.
The Jags, I mean, I know they play a lot of tough teams, but most of it is at home. Like, they play the Chiefs, they play the Bengals. They play a tough schedule, but they also play 6 games in the AFC South. So, I mean, don't be surprised if the Jacksonville Jaguars win 12, 13 games this season. Don't be surprised by that at all. I'm a believer in Trevor Lawrence as well. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Mr. Mo, what are we doing miking up players' parents?
That was wild. It was always on Aiden Hutchinson's mom and dad. They were always there. It was every other play. Whenever the Lions were on defense, let's just get a quick 15-second shot of the Hutchinsons. It's kind of strange, if I'm going to be honest. But listen, the NFL is a show. They started doing that a long time ago, and they're going to keep doing it. I can't wait to see Joe Burrow's parents on Sunday. Just mic them up, and we'll just have a grand old time. By like the 5th time they did it, it was like, all right, this is kind of old.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, that's just how the NFL operates.
Why didn't they mic up a player? Like, did anyone else notice that they never went to a player's reaction? Like, they never mic'd up a player. It was just his parents. The entire game.
No, it's strange. I think they don't do that though. I think they have to get like the player's approval and the team's approval. There's actual hurdles when it comes to that. But when it's Aiden Hutchinson's mom out there, it's like, yeah, you want to wear a mic for this game? Sure. Strange. I would stop it, but I don't have that control.
I saw something about miking up players. I think I saw that the MLB pays players $10,000 to be mic'd up during the game.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that real?
I saw a Z. I didn't do any research in it, but I did see that. And I'll tell you right now, if you're getting $10K per game, I mean, every relief pitcher in the bullpen's like, hey, you can mic me up every single game. Mic me up every single game.
There's a point in sports, and we've started to go this direction, but it's at some point the sport has to be the sport, and the entertainment side of it is the broadcast, and that's great. But you have to have a little wiggle room. You have to keep it separate a little bit. I love it, but if you have your starting right fielder just talking to broadcasters during the game and a fly ball goes his way, it's like, all right, I mean, take your microphone off.
Well, see, I disagree. And I knew that was going to be a problem when they started miking players, that the first time that a player makes an error while being talked to by the broadcasters, everyone's going to be calling for the head. If it makes the broadcast infinitely better. And that's what they're selling. That's the whole point of a sports team, is they are selling entertainment to fans. And if it makes the product better, that's what they should do. And it does make the product better. I want to see someone get mic'd up every single game I watch. I want to hear from the player every single game. And to be honest, there's nobody better than the outfielders, because I don't know if you ever played baseball in the outfield. There's not a whole lot to do out there. There's not a whole lot to do. You're not moving around a whole lot. You're just sitting there. There's a reason that they oftentimes, if you've ever been to a baseball game, you can talk to the fielders if you yell out enough. You can ask them questions and they'll answer. You can sit right there and talk to him. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's better for the sport. I think it's better. I mean, baseball, out of the big 3 sports that we watch, is objectively the most boring sport to watch, and that's coming from a baseball guy who loves baseball. It's his favorite sport. It makes it better. But I understand your complaint that it detracts from the game a little bit.
Yeah, it goes into like WWE type stuff. And if you divulge sport into WWE type stuff, then it's not sports, and then you lose interest. That's my issue. But I like if it's for the All-Star game, I love that. Like I love hearing the players' thoughts. You know what? I like the idea of it. I just don't like what it could become.
What the execution of it is.
I love it. Now I would take away from, I think didn't they mic up in the All-Star game the pitcher one time? That was awesome. You can't do that. You can't mic up a pitcher mid-game. That would be crazy. If you're just talking to Andrew Abbott tonight while he's pitching, that would be insane. But every other position, sure, why not? Who cares? If you played baseball before, it's not that big of a deal. Now, like I said, the second I haven't seen one time, but the second that you're talking to the shortstop and he makes an error, I mean, everyone's going to call, and guess what? Dansby Swanson or Ellie De La Cruz or whoever, Matt McClain, isn't going to be talking to broadcasters anytime soon. All right, Bengals-Browns this Sunday.
Let's go.
Parker Blake was talking about it. And
let's go.
Yeah, the question has always been, the problem has always been that the teams don't match up well. The Browns' strongest part of their team is their pass rush. For the past few years, the Bengals' weakest part of their team has been their protection of the quarterback. Not a good matchup, and it's shown its hand. Joe Burrow's only beaten the Browns one time. Week 1, he's 1-5 in the first 2 weeks of the season as well, Joe Burrow is. So the stats, the history isn't adding up. Didn't get any preseason snaps. A lot of talk has been talked about his contract, and he finally gets extended, so he's at the center of attention. So there's a lot of detracting factors for this game. But it's going to be the tale of who got better this offseason. The Browns' defensive line, Myles Garrett. Who did they just add on the other side?
Zadarius Smith.
Or did Orlando Brown Jr. and the Bengals get better? Guys, what is your keys this week? What are you seeing? What are the storylines for this Sunday?
So here's some big – let's talk first about who's actually going to be playing this game, because – they've got a couple of injuries that they're dealing with right now. Denzel Ward is dealing with a concussion. He was doing some individual drills on Thursday. We'll see what he does today, but not looking good there. And then Juwan Thornhill, their new safety, did not practice yesterday. He's dealing with a calf injury. He was limited on Wednesday, so we'll see about that. That would take down 2 of their starting secondary players, and they're going to need all of them in order to be able to stop Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. Not only that, it looks like they might also be missing some of their offensive linemen. They'll probably be okay. They were limited, or they were limited, but looks like it was just resting. But anyways. Yeah, the players that are the biggest keys are that secondary, if they're healthy, and the offensive line versus the defensive line. Bengals offensive line, Browns defensive line. I think if the Bengals can have a really good game plan where they run the ball and get a lot of push, that way they can run some play action week 1, I think they'll be okay. I think the key to that game is to be able to stop the edge rushers, Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett, from just teeing off, being able to rush the passer, to be able to rush Joe Burrow. And the way that you do that is by having a really good run game. And they just happen to have one of the best left tackles in the league at mauling people, one of the biggest offensive tackles in the league. Orlando Brown Jr. and Cordell Volson are going to punch some holes open in the left side, and Joe Mixon's going to he should have a good field day. Now, will they do that? I don't know. Years past, it seems like the Bengals' offensive game plans at the beginning of the season tend to be a little questionable. We question whether or not Zach Taylor's play calling is all that great or not. And then towards the end of the season, they figure it out. But we'll see. We'll see how it ends up shaking down. I think I'm not too worried about the Browns offense. I think our defense is good enough to stop the Browns offense. It's more of a matter of, can we slow down Myles Garrett?
Yeah, I think Parker Blake brought something up that it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. A lot of talk has been brought up about the Bengals in years past, about how they start slow. They seemingly can't move the ball in the first quarter. And Parker Blake says that he almost wants to kind of see that. He wants to see a little bit of a conservative play call, just get a feel for what the Browns are defensively, and then start seeing how the Bengals can attack. And I'll be interested to see how that plays out. As for this game, got to stop Myles Garrett. As for this season, I guess is what I'm saying, is I'm a little bit scared about being a fan as we have gone to a point of no return in terms of expectations. I've told Reds fans this before. I've told Bengals fans this before. The first year of competing is always the best because the expectations are low. Every game's so exciting. You get there. And this is, I think, what my problem is with college football is the expectations, if you like an elite program, are so high that you're looking about how you win, how many points you win by. And I hate that. I don't like that at all. And the Bengals are to that point. See, 2 years ago, they make the Super Bowl run. Absolutely euphoric. Fantastic. The next year, the first 2 weeks were terrible, but they lowered the expectations, and now the Bengals' plans were, all right, let's just get back in the postseason and see what happens. Let's start playing better football. The expectations shift. Now that they've been the AFC Championship for 2 straight years and the Super Bowl 2 years ago, the expectations are so high that it worries your fandom a little bit because it makes it a less enjoyable because you expect to win games. Like the Bengals are going into the Browns game. And though they haven't had a whole lot of success against the Browns, they still have to – you still feel like they should win. You still feel like they should win the AFC North. You still feel like they should be playing for be winning postseason games. And when those things happen, it doesn't feel as rewarding because that expectation was already present. And that's what I'm worried about a little bit going into this year. But there's nothing you can do. We're past that point, and that's just the part of being a good team, being a good franchise, being a Super Bowl contender, being a championship contender. Is these expectations are part of it. And you got to figure out a way to find enjoyment in other ways. But as for the game, if the Bengals can keep 9 upright, how can you beat them? 3 targets. That's always been the game. That's always been the game plan. They've won when they put them on the back 9 times in the postseason. Back-to-back games 2 years ago. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times, and the Bengals won against playoff teams in the biggest games of their lives. If you keep 9 upright, and you have 1 and 5 running across the field, you have Joe Mixon going for 1,000 yards rushing again, which he would have done if he didn't get hurt last year. How can you stop this Bengals offense?
Yeah, and to both your points, I don't know what the play calling will be with Burrow missing another preseason. I imagine they're going to start off running the ball quite a bit. Joe Mixon in the opener last year had 27 carries. I don't think he capitalized a ton on those 27 carries, averaged about 3 yards there. So I think if you want to win this game, A, you minimize the turnovers. Joe Burrow threw 4 interceptions. B, you minimize the sacks. Joe Burrow took 7 sacks in the opener last year and really just got sacked 7 times a game pretty much every time he went out there. If you can minimize the turnovers, don't let Burrow take hits left and right. Just keep him standing like Reid said. You're going to win this game. You have the talent. You're a more talented roster. You're a better team than the Cleveland Browns. The X factor in this game will be Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I think, is a bad person. I say that with no love and no respect. I don't think Deshaun Watson's a very good guy, but at the end of the day, he's a very good quarterback. And if he's able to find that within himself, if he's able to be an MVP-type quarterback like he once was with the Texans, Bengals could be in trouble because I still don't believe in the Bengals secondary a ton, if I'm being honest. And if Deshaun Watson is able to find Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, guys that are able to make plays downfield, Bengals are going to be in trouble. that Halloween game, it seemed like, and it wasn't even Deshaun Watson, backup quarterback. It was Jacoby Brissett, right?
Brissett, yep.
So Jacoby Brissett was torching the Bengals all game on that fateful Halloween night. If Deshaun Watson is able to do that again, this game's over. The Browns are going to win. So my X factor is Deshaun Watson. If he's able to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, the MVP quarterback that he once was predicted to be, I think the Browns win this game. I think it sucks, but it's a road game. It's a divisional game. They've got a great defense. They've got great players. Nick Chubb's elite. I do think if you hold Nick Chubb in check, you force Deshaun Watson to throw. I think he's going to make mistakes. I don't think this is the Deshaun Watson of past, but again, he could be. So those are my keys. Limit that.
Deshaun Watson is so close. He is so close to being a felon. Yeah, Nick Chubb is. I'm not worried about Nick Chubb. Listen. I know he ran all over the Bengals last year, but that was with DJ Reader gone, right? That was with the main run stopper on the Bengals defensive line. He was gone. I think that the Bengals got a lot of question marks in the secondary, right? They're very young there. If you look at each, team, the running back room, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line, wide receiver, secondary, linebacker, defensive line. If you look at each team that the Bengals have, I would argue, and in fact I have argued, that the Bengals have gotten better at almost every position other than safety. They bring back Awuzie, healthy. Now both their starting safeties are gone, but the Bengals planned for that. They drafted guys early in the draft to replace. And they looked great in the preseason. They did. A lot of talent, lot of athleticism in that secondary. But the AFC North is the toughest division in sports or in the NFL for a reason. And that's because all the teams, we look at the Cleveland Browns and we say that they have one of the best rosters in the league. And I could sit here and argue successfully that they have the worst roster in the AFC North. And that's no disrespect to the Cleveland Browns. That's just the AFC North's really good. The Baltimore Ravens, one of the best teams. I think they might be the sneakiest best team or the best sleeper pick in the AFC. The reason they haven't been successful in the postseason the past few years is because Lamar Jackson got hurt. If he stays healthy, they're right there with the rest of the AFC. And the Steelers won 9 games last year. We're a winning franchise. Or were they 8-1?
No, they were 9-8.
9-8. 9-8 with Kenny Pickett.
No losing seasons for my guy Mike Tomlin.
Is that one of the most impressive stats?
Yeah, it is. It is, especially because the AFC North's been a juggernaut for a while now.
Right.
So Mike Tomlin has been able to do what he's. Mike Tomlin being able to do what he's done is pretty damn impressive.
Trace brought up a really good question. Shout out to Trace. He said, "Is Jared Goff a top 10 quarterback?" Now, he's right there. He's right there. I think a better question is Jared Goff a top 2 quarterback in the NFC?
Ooh.
Jalen Hurts is right there, right? It'd be hard to not put Jalen Hurts as the best quarterback in the NFC based off what he did last year. But Jared Goff or Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones. Jared Goff was great last year. He threw it around last night very well. I think people forget how good Jared Goff is, how good of a career he had. If you're one of the greatest regular season games that I've ever seen was between Patrick Mahomes and Jared Goff. What was that, 2019? 2018? Somewhere right around there? Rams versus Chiefs, scoring left and right. Jared Goff has won some meaningful football games. He won another one last night. Casey, you think Jared Goff's the second best quarterback in the NFC?
I think he's definitely in the top 4. Yeah, definitely in the top 4. I'd probably do Jalen Hurts. Then if you're going to ask me who I would have there next, it's probably going to be Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, Dak Prescott.
Geno Smith.
But
Geno Smith.
I guess I would slot Jared Goff at 4 ahead of Prescott. Prescott, to me, has got a turnover issue that needs to be fixed, or else he's going to be in trouble. And then Geno Smith, whether or not you guys like him or not, he balled out last year. And I want to see him do it again. That's why I don't have him at 2. And then Kirk Cousins is at 2 because, I mean, he's just pretty consistent, going to get you 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards passing, and going to win you, 8 games a year. So pretty consistent there. Can't really argue with that.
Jared Goff, you can trust Jared Goff, but Jared Goff does. I mean, I'd say if you need a drive, you need 75 yards in a minute. Jared Goff's about one of the last guys I want as my quarterback during that time. So, I mean, I think he played okay last night. He didn't light the world on fire. He scored 14 points. So I don't know. I mean, respectfully, he didn't do a great job. I think he did enough to win. I think he's a very good game manager. I put him in the same category as Jimmy Garoppolo. But at the end of the day, when I'm trying to win a football game, I don't want Jared Goff as my quarterback.
I feel like
Jared Goff scored 3 points in a Super Bowl. I mean, what are we doing?
I feel like calling Jared Goff a game manager is a slight oversight, considering in his career he's thrown for 4,500 yards 3 times. In fact, I'm looking at his career record right now, and I know winning records aren't all, but for what it's worth, if you take away his rookie season in L.A., and you take away his first season in Detroit when he took over a terrible roster, you take away those 2 seasons where he went 3-17-1 in those 2 seasons. Other than that, 52-28 as a starting quarterback on teams that previously, I mean, we're talking about the Detroit Lions. We're talking about the Rams, who just moved out to L.A. because it wasn't going well in St. Louis. So, I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, 11-4 his second year as a starter, 13-3 third year as a starter. I mean, every year he's had one losing season as a starter for the whole year. One losing season, and that was his first year in Detroit. I think Jared Goff is quietly, to answer Trace's original question, he's probably right there at 10 for best quarterbacks in the league. And I would argue, I would take, if you're asking me, outside of Jalen Hurts, who in the NFC do I want to be my quarterback? And maybe we're overreacting because of last night's game. But if you ask me any quarterback in the NFC for one game and it's not Jalen Hurts, give me Jared Goff. I don't want Kirk Cousins. I don't want Dak Prescott. I don't want Daniel Dimes. I don't want any of these guys. I'll take Jared Goff. Second best quarterback in the NFC. Stamp it down. Now it makes him like the 10th best quarterback in the league because we know the AFC has a lot better quarterbacks, but it's neither here nor there. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds later on in the show. In a few minutes, we're going to bring on the Bengal boys, Alex Dolezal, who is fantastic. Casey, I don't know if our fans know a lot about the Bengals. They don't have a humongous following. They've got a couple thousand people on Twitter. If you look at their YouTube, they get a few thousand. They are my favorite content creators from Bengals fans. Like I mentioned earlier, they do a theme song. It normally comes out the day before. We'll show one here in a second here. But it comes out every week throughout the season. They're funny, normally to some 70s or 80s pop hit. They do a whole music video. Casey, go ahead and show them this. This was from last year after the Bengals beat the New Orleans Saints.
His pass, caught by Chase at the 50, runs through an arm tackle, down the sideline. He's going to take it to the house. Jamar Chase, a 60-yard touchdown.
Lights were shining in the dome. Gold Tigers came back home. We're 500 after pundits built a deathbed, don't you know? Burrows meeting up with Chase. Hey, running down for T2, stole a duck from the bayou. Hit the gritty, now it's back to Cincinnati. Joe and Chase are hooking up to make some plays. Hey, Uno and nine down the sideline. Not seen plays like that for so long. Where did we go wrong? Thank God LSU Tigers made a man of you. After starting 0-2, watch out league, we're after you.
All right, like I said, it's one of the highlights of the week, and we have the Bengal boy himself, Alex Dolezal. Alex, how are you, man?
What's up, Reid? How you doing, man?
Doing well. It's been a long time. We talked a few months ago, but it's been a long time since we've seen the Bengals get going, and I know you're excited about it. You don't live around Cincinnati, correct?
No, we're all born and raised in Cincinnati. We all went to Loveland and CHCA, but we all live in Nashville.
Really? All right, the Bengal boys. How many are there of you?
There's four, and
Four.
and a part-time fifth who's our occasional referee.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, but four of us, two of us live together, and then the other two live just 2 minutes down the road, and all met at Belmont University down in Nashville. And the pandemic happened, and we got bored, and things happened.
Yeah.
Musically.
So that's your origin story. You guys were bored, and 2020 came up. The Bengals draft Joe Burrow, and you said, "Hey, what if we start making music videos for the Cincinnati Bengals with a theme song every week?"
Pretty much, yeah. So three of the members, me and two other members, were living all together. Had plenty of free time, and I was teaching them the growl on piano, and we just decided to post it to social media, and a lot of people shared it more than we were used to. We thought, well, we have time. Let's do it again in a different genre. And so, like a Bob Ross painting, it's one big happy accident.
Yeah, so you live in Nashville, you make these songs. Alex, do you have a background in music? Like, take me through, like, how I guess you said you're teaching people how to play piano. Do you have a background in music?
I do, yeah. So I've been playing. I'm a pianist and composer. I musical directed a comedy club down here in Nashville. I've been my parents made me take piano lessons when I was 8, and hated it until I liked it. So I'm glad they taught me patience. So that's my background more so. One of the other members, Dylan, is currently a guitarist on tour. He's playing for a country artist named Kylie Morgan, who they just kicked off their first night of a multi-month arena tour opening for Old Dominion. So he's a pro. My current roommate right now, Colin Cooper, is a fantastic drummer and producer and videographer. And then Parker Phillips is a singer with a background in musical theater. And so we all have that common interest and love for the Bengals for sure.
You said that you guys met down in Belmont, but you're all from Cincinnati. You're all Bengals fans. You didn't know each other before you guys got down to Nashville, got down to college?
Some of us. Sorry, I totally misworded that. So
It's all right.
3 of us went to Loveland High School, all graduated together. We've known each other since
Shout out Tigers.
Oh yeah, shout out Tigers. That's right.
Yep.
Also, congrats to your Cubs. Just wanted to throw it out there.
Thanks, Alex.
Y'all looking good. Dylan, Parker, and I all met in high school or middle school. And they even knew each other well back before then. And then we met Colin, our fourth, down at Belmont.
So take me through. You guys got a song releasing tomorrow, and I assume you're gonna continue to do a weekly release based on whatever's going on in Bengals fandom. Take me through how you go about kind of the creative process about how you decide, hey, this is what the song's gonna be. This is what we're gonna dub it off of. We just played your ELO Mr. Blue Sky from last year. Take me through how you kind of go about making the song.
Yeah, so game happens on Sunday. Pretty much try to get a list of all the overreactions and knee-jerk reactions from the game, and then after that we'll try to select a song on Monday, and if the song's selected, I'll try to write lyrics by end of day Monday, so we can get the track together on Tuesday and Wednesday, and hopefully record those vocals on Wednesday. Thursday will often be a filming day. I'll get a shot list together and check availabilities. And then Friday will just be a full-on editing day. And, I'm trying to be better about it this year, but last year especially, there was a knack for finishing the video about 6 hours before they were released.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of procrastination. Listen, I didn't turn in a single. If a paper in college was due at 12, I was turning it in at no earlier than 11:30. Procrastination's nothing wrong with that. So, any big plans for the season? Like, do you guys already have a few songs lined up, or tomorrow's song? What time does that release?
Oh yes, I try to do 9 a.m. Eastern, so 8 a.m. Central here for release. And tomorrow's song is "Don't Flop in Cleveland." I'll let you guess what that is.
Right.
And so it's a song that I'm tired of listening to already, and I'm excited to post so other people can listen to it, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
And you'll understand why once it's posted. But this year, just trying to get do a lot more of the same. This is my first year as a freelance musician, where I'm not like balancing a 9 to 5. I'm surviving, so I have more time to be able to make this better and plan more methodically. So there are a few fun songs planned out, though. I'm going to do some filming down here in Nashville at a few events, especially when the Bengals are in town against the Titans. Always try to take advantage of them coming to Nashville.
Yeah, I'll actually be in Nashville for that game. A buddy of mine's getting married, and he wanted to go to an away game. I said, well, they go down to Nashville, so I'll be down there for that one. Have you ever done one of your songs live?
We've only recorded one. We kind of. So last year at Bengal Gyms on January 3rd, the DeMar Hamlin game, he gave us 15 minutes of stage time, and we wrote the Kinks' Lola as Logan and filmed it live there, and then mixed it in with our recording. But at Bengal Gyms in Nashville this year, we're hoping to do some of the hits.
Yeah, that'll be great. Hey, I'll be looking forward to it. Alex, thank you for coming on. We're looking forward. 9 a.m. tomorrow. For those who don't follow, they can follow you on Bengal Boys, at the Bengal Boys on Twitter, and your YouTube channel, and they can subscribe to that, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Alex, thank you for coming on. Who Day, and I'm looking forward to seeing Don't Flop in Cleveland tomorrow.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Reid. Take it easy. Who Day.
See you, Alex. All right, guys. You know what we haven't done? You know, we oftentimes tease with Trace because he's the CEO of this company, and we don't give a whole lot of credit to our sponsors here on the show. So we haven't done it in a while. Casey, are we ready for a ham and egger segment?
A ham and egger segment?
Sure, and let's get the ad reads in. We'll give you a second. I'll give you a second.
Well, I mean, that was spontaneous. That was spontaneous.
I mean, do you want me to do it like Tom? Like, ham and eggers, take it away.
Please, and then I want you to walk off.
All right. Mr. President.
Show, the ham and eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Well, this is the Ham and Egger segment, and in this segment, we like to shout out our sponsors. This show has been brought to you by UDF, and the whole last hour and a half, we've been talking about the Bengals, so that segment has been brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and
Productivity.
Good job, guys. Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. And then let me tell you about this beautiful, beautiful product here, Pawnee Water. The best tasting water in the world, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. It's just water, guys. There's no additives. There's nothing in it. It's just pure water. The best hydration that you're going to possibly get. And let me tell you, it's built right here in Hamilton, Ohio. You can try this great tasting water at pawneewater.com. That's PAHHNI water.com. Try it out, guys. It really is the best hydration that you're going to be able to get. There's no like salts and electrolytes that are gonna bog you down at all. It's all just water. So
It's just water. It's
just
natural
water.
limestone filtration for me, Casey. It makes you look younger. I don't drink enough of it. That's why I look like I'm 43. But it truly is best water. Shout out to Pawnee. Shout out to all of our sponsors, Encore Technologies, UDF, Pawnee Water, Betfred Sportsbook. It's great. We're going to do a betting segment later on in the show to kind of wrap this whole thing up. But before we get into that, let's talk about we've talked for the last 90 minutes about the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's get into the other team in town. In the middle of a postseason hunt, the Cincinnati Reds are a half game out from the third wild card spot. They take on the St. Louis Cardinals tonight. 9 straight games against teams under 500. This is something that Casey, we've been teasing Casey about. He called the greatest run in Cincinnati Reds September history. And here they are. Talked about it for months, and they're finally in this September stretch. What do you guys think they have to get done? How many wins do you think they have to get? They're sitting 4 games over 500, 73 wins. I'm looking at they got to get about 12-8, 11-9 for the rest of the year. Elliot?
Yeah, no, it's going to have to be. I mean, I'm not going to say you have to sweep these teams, but if you lose a series here, I mean, you have to win every series. If I'm going to be complete, you have to win the series. Every single series from this point out, except for the Twins and Guardians, I'll allow a split of the Guardians and I'll allow 1 win against the Twins. Other than that, you have to win every series, and that's how you get into the playoffs. 12 wins, I believe, will get you in. So I think that's what you got to shoot for. If I'm going to be honest, the Cardinals are sweepable. They need to be swept. Right now, tonight, it's Andrew Abbott versus some guy I've never heard of. Drew Rahm is his name. He's got a 7 ERA and 2 starts. He's 0-2. Take these games, score all the runs you can. Again, the Reds have as good of a chance to make the postseason right now as any team in baseball. They have a 30% chance, roughly, 29%. So at this point, if I'm going to be completely honest, I love my chances. I think the Reds are going to sweep this series. I think they're going to sweep the St. Louis Cardinals. What can't happen, what without question cannot happen, if the Reds get swept at all during this stretch, I'm going to call it. I'm going to call this season because it can't happen. These teams aren't good. They're not competitive. They're not real. They're not serious teams right now. So if you're looking at the St. Louis Cardinals, you're looking at the New York Metropolitans, you're looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I say this with all due love and respect, the Pirates have showed great strides. I think they just lost McCutchen for the season. Other than that, they're not good. I mean, these teams aren't good. Even the Twins. If I'm going to sit here and tell you that the Twins are good, I'd be lying. They play in the worst division in baseball. It's a bad division. The Guardians are 7 games back, and they went all in at the deadline because it was just such a bad division. I mean, it's atrocious. So the Twins aren't good. The Guardians really aren't good, but somehow the Reds can never beat the Guardians. Any series loss, any sweep is unacceptable. Take care of business, do your job, and we'll go from there. If you win every series, let's say you win 2 or 3 every single series from here on out. Obviously, Guardians, you'd have to win both. You're in the playoffs. That's it. We'll see you in the postseason. We get Matt McClain back, get Jonathan India back, we get Hunter Green back, we get Graham Ashcraft back. Once all this happens, Reds are good to go, baby.
17 of the final 20 games are against teams under 500. The Guardians didn't buy at the deadline. They sold at the deadline. They then had a thing fall in their lap that was all these waiver wires.
Sorry, I meant the waiver wire thing. Sorry, that was my bad. Hand down.
And they said, hey, sure, why not? I mean, if these guys are free, we'll go ahead and take a stab at them. That's what happened with the Guardians. But yeah, 17 of the final 20 games against teams under 500. You've got to win 12 wins of the final 20, 100% gets you in. 85 wins, you got to think has to get you in. 86 certainly does. But 85 more than likely will. 84, 83, then we're talking about it. But luckily the Reds have, the tiebreaker over both NL West teams, but not the Marlins, if that's correct, right?
Yeah, they do not have the tiebreaker over the Marlins. It would have. I forget. Kirby mentioned it, and I'd have to find it. It's 3-3. Oh no, it goes against divisional record. That's what it is. So the Reds have a 3-3 record against the Miami Marlins. The second tiebreaker after the head-to-head would be divisional records. So And the Reds do not have a good divisional record. They've been very bad against the division. Shout out to the Brewers.
Kirby said they only have the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks. They do not have it over the Giants, and they more than likely lost it to the Marlins. So,
yeah, we'll see. Again, it shouldn't come to that, if I'm going to be honest. Take care of business, you're going to be in the postseason. The Marlins have a brutal schedule. The Giants aren't good, and the Diamondbacks aren't good. So at that point, I like my chances. I'm going to say all these teams aren't good just to upset you.
So
no, it's all right.
Go ahead.
I agree. The Giants are terrible.
I was just going to say this St. Louis game is the mark, the start of where I started saying that we were going to start sweeping. I had 9 wins in a row.
You started with the Mariners series.
No, it's St. Louis, Detroit, Mets.
Okay.
That's a 9-game
win streak.
That's what I predicted. And then 2-1 versus Minnesota, 2-1 versus Pittsburgh, 1-1 versus Cleveland, sweeping the Cardinals.
So they're going to win 90 games.
This would be the greatest. This would be the greatest call in the history of sports broadcasting. Casey from the clouds predicted 6 of 8 consecutive losses, and then comes into September and sweeps the schedule. I love it. I don't think it's plausible. I do think this Reds team, as much as I love them, as much as I think they're more talented than the other wild card spots, as much as I think there's as good a chance as anyone to make the postseason, I do have a pit in my stomach where I think they're going to collapse at some point here. I don't know when, I don't know why, I don't know where, but at some point the choke job is going to come. I've been accustomed to this in Cincinnati, and despite what Kirby thinks, all these franchises in Cincinnati have cursed me from the day I was born. So I've not seen a team like this be clutch. So we'll see. If the curse is broken, the curse is broken. Joe Burrow broke the curse for the Cincinnati Bengals. Can Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, and everybody else break the curse for the Reds this year? I hope so, but I don't believe it until I see it.
Now, you said that if the Reds lose a series against any of these teams, then you're calling it, right?
Sweep. If they get swept.
Oh, they get swept.
If they get swept.
You're calling the season.
Yeah.
How many times have you called the season already this year?
I think 7.
At
maybe
least
8.
I was going to say.
8. I called it early. I called. Okay, so let's go back real quick. I called the season dead before the season, so that's 1. I called the season dead when they got swept by the Pirates very early on. 2. Season was back on after they swept the Rangers, I think, and then beat Oakland. I called this season dead when they lost to Milwaukee after the All-Star break, after they got swept after the All-Star break. I called it dead during the 6-game losing streak in August.
The Cubs. The
five,
Cubs series.
I might have called it for the Cubs too. I might have called it for the Cubs series in Chicago. I think I've read 5. I think I've called it 5 times.
Well, it's. I mean, I'm genuinely saying this. It is so funny that in back-to-back days earlier this week, they win the first 2 games against the Mariners, and Elliott himself said, "I think we can win the World Series," and then they lose pretty handedly the next day. And I get on X.com and people are like, "Season's done, season's over." What's going on? I mean, I get that
but this is what makes it so good when you're a fan of a team. When you're a fan of a team like the Reds, who were predicted to go nowhere.
It's the most fun.
It's this right now is honestly, and we can have this debate if you want. I think this is more fun. The fight for a playoff spot when the team was declared dead by the league, by everybody, by Vegas. I think this is more fun than being a Super Bowl favorite just because of those high expectations. When there's no expectations on you and you're playing with house money, that's the best time in the world. I think it's more fun right now to be a Reds fan. No, I won't say that. I'm not going to actually finish that sentence. I'm going to say this. It's more fun for me personally to be a Reds fan than a Bengals fan.
Well, we already know that you don't love the Bengals.
I love that's blasphemous.
No.
That's slander.
That's
slander. That's blasphemous.
There's been some context clues. Clues. It started when he said that the 10-game winning streak last year by the Bengals wasn't impressive. It's just listen, you only have so much heart to give, and you can only give it out in so many places. Casey gives his entire heart to the Cincinnati Bengals, a little bit to Alex, and a little bit to FCC. I give most of my heart to a team that we're not going to talk about, and then a lot of it to the Cincinnati Bengals, and then a little bit to my golden retriever. Other than that, I mean, that's just what you got. And Elliot is absolutely right. I said this earlier in the show because I've lived it. Don't kill me in the chat, but I'm just giving personal experience here. The 2015 Cubs was way more fun than the 2016 Cubs. The 2015 Cubs were projected to win 78 games. They win 97 and beat 2 divisional rivals in the postseason before getting swept in the NLCS. The next year, obviously, they won the World Series, which was great, fantastic. I don't think any Bengals season will top the first run to the Super Bowl. Even if the Bengals win the Super Bowl, it will not be as fun as that first-year run. We weren't even sure they were going to make the postseason. We were like, is it going to come down to Week 17 against the Cleveland Browns? Please don't let it come down to Week 17 against the Cleveland Browns. Well, they kicked the Ravens' ass multiple times. They beat the Chiefs, and they clinched the division. All right, can we get a win? Can we get a win in the postseason? Oh, here comes the Raiders. We're at home. What's going to happen? It's coming down to this final drive. The Raiders are in the red zone. Please don't score. Please. Oh, we won. Great. Now we got to play the 1-seeded Titans. Won that on a field goal. Now we got to play the Chiefs. Down 21. What was it 21-3? 21-3 in the AFC Championship. Come back, win on a game-winning field goal. Then, of course, they lose on a bogus call in the Super Bowl. No season, I don't think I can have more fun as a Bengals fan than that year. And that's ultimately what this is about. You give time, effort, energy, and money to these sports teams because you want to have fun. You want to enjoy yourself. It's a silly game. They're playing sports. There's a reason most adults don't play sports when they're older, right? It's for fun. It's for activity. And then we just give all this money, all this time, all this energy to these teams. And it's so we can have enjoyment outside of the work that we do. But yeah, Elliot's right. I don't see, once expectations come into the fandom, that's when the fun starts going down a little bit. Casey, I think you were about to say something earlier.
No, I don't think I forgot whatever it was.
No, I think there is a testament to it. When I was watching the Bengals run, I'll never forget where I was for each of those games. I was at Brothers Bar and Grill, no free ads, Brothers Bar and Grill for the Raiders game, and just the atmosphere of being there and having the curse lifted. Because there was a point in that game at the end, the Raiders had a chance to win the game. So, or tie it. Was it tie it or win it? I think it was win it. So I think
that would have been if they would have
scored a touchdown, it would have won.
Yep.
The interception there, it broke the curse. It was a feeling I haven't felt as a Cincinnati sports fan ever. The Titans game was so crazy because, again, the Titans had a very good chance to win that game, and Ryan Tannehill tossed it away, literally. The magic, the sense of craziness around what's happening right now with the Reds, I'm getting a similar vibe. It's a similar thing where the Reds have no business being in the position they are. They're winning these games out their ass, and at the same time, they have a serious chance to make the postseason. They have a serious chance to make a run. And again, in a postseason, when you're stacking your best pitchers, anything can happen in these games. It's as much as I want to sit here and say that the Braves are a mortal lock and they're going to win the World Series, they're going to sweep everybody. It's usually not how it happens, right?
Right.
So I think the Reds, if you do your job in September, if you show me that you're able to do your job, I'm going to believe, and I'm going to believe harder than I've ever believed in my entire life. I'm ready to go, baby.
When was the last time that in the MLB, the team that had the most wins won the World Series? Did the Astros have the most wins? Did it happen last year? Because it feels like every year we're midway through June or July, and like the Dodgers are on pace to win 110 games. You're like, oh, the Dodgers are a lock. Or remember 2019 when the Minnesota Twins set the record for I think they won like 107 games. They set the record for most home runs in a season. Literally every single person in their lineup hit 30 home runs, and they got their ass kicked in the NLDS or ALDS. When was the last time, and someone looked that up, the last time that a Super Bowl champ, it literally might have been the Astros last year.
It was not the Astros because the Dodgers won the most last year. Dodgers won 111, Astros won 106. So hold on, we'll find it. We'll get through this. 2021, who won in 2021?
The Braves.
The Braves won it in 2021. It wasn't the Braves. They only won 88 games.
They were 2 games below 500 at the All-Star break.
If it's 2020, it doesn't count, right?
2020 would be the Dodgers, and no. 2019 was the Nationals. They certainly weren't. 2018, maybe the Red Sox. 2018 Red Sox.
Technically, in 2020, the Dodgers had the most, and they won the most.
Yeah, I'm not counting that.
Okay.
All right, the 2018 Red Sox won 108 games. Without looking at the rest of the year, that has to be the most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we found it. It's been 5 years since the team with the most wins in the regular season.
Asterisk 2020.
Asterisk 2020. Doesn't count. The only thing that counts for 2020 is who won divisions in the National League.
Were the Cubs supposed to be bad that year too? Was that what happened there? Because I'm trying to remember the Reds were supposed to win the division. They had an elite pitching staff. They had an elite team, I'd argue. But it obviously the Reds didn't play good at all until the last month of the season.
The Cubs were starting their decline, right?
Yeah.
They in 2017 they made the NLCS. 2018 they had the collapse in September, and same thing happened in 2020 or 2019. Then in 2020 they started out like 14-3. And it was like, oh, this season's pretty much over for the division. And then, yeah, they ended up winning by like a game. They weren't supposed to be good. And then 2020, we gave them half a year, and they led the division for like half the season and then lost like 13 straight games, capped off in Great American Ballpark. I was there for every single one of those games. And, yeah, that was bad time.
What do you think the Reds fans will do if David Bell wins a World Series? Do you think they'll break? Do you think they'll break and be like, all right, David Bell's earned it. He's finally good. Because Zach Taylor, I feel like Zach Taylor gets a lot of heat. During the regular season last year, it felt like Zach Taylor was getting just as much heat as David Bell is getting this season. But the difference is Zach Taylor's gotten to a Super Bowl, and I think a lot of fans know that, and the culture changed and everything like that. I think David Bell right now is in a position where if he takes this team to a postseason, fans have to just shut up. They have to shut up about the hate about David Bell.
The thing is you're right about Zach Taylor. He will continuously catch flack if the Bengals aren't succeeding. The difference between the Bengals and the Reds are, and maybe it shouldn't be like this, the Bengals have held on to their coaches for forever. So it's just like you're almost just yelling into a void because nothing's going to happen to Zach Taylor. What's the point of being mad when nothing's going to happen? They're just going to hold on to Zach Taylor unless he has 2 losing seasons in a row. For the Reds fans, I don't know. It's objectively funny that David Bell, I mean, that's just comes with the role, right? That's just part of the job, is that when you're winning, they don't give you much credit. If you're losing, you get all the blame. I remember my grandma telling me, it's like, if close games are won by players, close games are lost by coaches. And that's how we view it, right? That's how we view it, and you're right. Anything short of David Bell winning, going to the NLCS, if they say next year, even if the Reds make the postseason this year, seriously, Reds make the postseason, get in that final wild card spot, even if they win and get to the NLDS. Next year, it's middle of June, and heaven forbid that the Reds are 10 games under 500. People are going to be calling for David Bell's head. I mean, just going to be calling for it. That's what's going to happen. Even if they're 500 right in June, people are going to be calling for his head. Not to keep bringing up my fandom, because I don't like doing it on the show because I know you guys hate it. Seriously, I'm going to stop doing it. I'm done being the troll except for when it's funny. But when Joe Madden won the World Series for the Cubs, we said, this guy can do no wrong. He's got a lifetime contract with the Cubs. He was fired 3 years later. Literally fired 3 years later. And you can say that they left on their own terms. Nah. And they said, get out of Dodge, Joe. It's funny.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy, the sports landscape when it comes to the fans. And I'll be the first one to admit I overreact. When this season ends, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to rank my apologies. I'm going to apologize to every player I've said a bad thing about, and I've said a lot of bad things about a lot of players. It's how a reactionary fan does it.
We talked about this. You said a bad thing about every player besides Matt McClain,
Jake Fraley. I think
Luke Bailey, maybe like
Alexis Diaz. I think I've been pretty good on Alexis Diaz, but there's maybe been a couple things.
But every other player, there's been at least some negativity spewed their way.
Yeah, and it's just part of the game. When you're a fan, this is how it is. It's like when you're watching a TV show and you have your favorite characters, you have your least favorite characters. As much as I don't want to, I mean, sports is a very real thing. These are real people. This isn't scripted like the WWE. So this is a very real thing, and I know I take personal shots. I don't like to do it, but it's all in jest. I don't mean any of it. It's just when you watch games, this is how I deal with it. It's just I lash out and I make jokes. Nothing serious, but I will apologize. At the end of the season, I'll apologize. I think number 1 on the list is going to have to probably be Tyler Stevenson. After that, maybe Kevin Newman. Nick Senzel's up there. I've been hard on Nick Senzel. Ian Jabot. You know what? Ian Jabot's number 1, actually. Ian Jabot's number 1. But I've been good with Ian Jabot. I think I've come back.
I think you've made your peace with Ian Jabot.
Yeah, I've come back on Ian Jabot. I follow him on Twitter.
The entire bullpen, perhaps.
Yeah, well, some of the bullpen I actually won't apologize to because I think they are bums. But I will apologize to most people on the Reds team. So I think J.R. House, I'll have to apologize to J.R. House because he's a bad third base coach. He's bad. So, but we'll get to that at the end of the year. Right now the season's still on. The Reds are going to win the final wild card spot. We're going to be okay. Everybody relax. We'll sweep the Cardinals, and we'll go from there.
Are you worried about who the Reds would play in the postseason, or are you just worried about getting there? Like, is there...
No, that the who I play in the postseason doesn't matter at this point.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I don't want to play the Brewers. Trace says he wants to play the Brewers. I think that's ludicrous. I think that's quite literally the last team on the face of the planet I'd want to play in a playoff game, in a playoff series. I'd rather play.
They stink.
Huh?
But you think they stink. You see what we're doing here?
That's tough. I don't think they're great. Do you think the Brewers have a shot in hell at winning the World Series this year? Be honest.
I think that's not really. I mean,
no, I don't think they do.
Are you asking me if I think they have a more than 5% chance of winning the World Series? No, I don't.
I think there's a lot of teams. I think the Phillies are a better team. I think the Cubs are the better team than the Brewers. So I'll go down the line here, but the Brewers are quite.
But you'd rather play the Phillies or the Cubs in the postseason?
Yeah, just because I've seen the Reds compete against them. The Reds lay down and die when it's Milwaukee time. Whenever Milwaukee comes into town or whenever we go to Milwaukee, the Reds lay down and they die. There's no chance the bats wake up, and I can't lose a playoff series 2-0, having each game be a final score of 1-0. Just can't happen to me again. I can't do it. The Atlanta Braves series in 2020 killed me. Trevor Bauer went 9 innings, didn't give up a hit, almost. Didn't give up a run, and they lost the game. It's just crazy.
Alex Rodriguez was on that call, right? And he's talking about bunting. He's like, this is why you bunt. And I'm like sitting in my mind going like, had Alex Rodriguez in the history of his baseball playing ever laid down a sacrifice bunt? And that's a very easy baseball reference search, but God, Alex Rodriguez sends you to the moon. I have no apologies for Alex Rodriguez.
Who's a worse broadcaster, Alex Rodriguez or Tony Romo?
See, what's funny about Tony Romo is everyone fell in love with the shtick of him calling the plays and stuff like that. A-Rod's worse. A-Rod's the phoniest person I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's pretty fake.
Alex Rodriguez had 16 bunts, sacrifice hits. Had 16 bunts in his career in 3,000 games. In 3,000 games.
Yeah, that's wild.
So he did bunt. Can we agree that if the Cubs sneak into the 1 seed or win the division and the Reds play, like if the Reds and the Cubs play each other, can we do it again? Can we go to a game again?
That'd be tough, Reid. I don't think I could. I mean, we'd have to for content purposes, but I don't think I could handle it, if I'm going to be honest. I can't handle a loss sitting next to Reid again. I mean, when I said, and again, I called that game over. We were in the 3rd inning. It was 5-1 Reds, and I'm like, Reid, buddy, I mean, this game's over. I mean, how do you feel?
I said it's the 3rd. You said you were so mad at me because you wanted to throw $200 on the Reds.
Yeah.
And I told you not to.
Responsibly.
I told you not to.
And I was right, or you were right, and I listened to you. So, and then in the 3rd inning, I was pissed at Reid because I thought I would have won a lot of money. And it came to about the 6th inning. I was like, all right, never mind. It was dead. That was wild, but whatever.
I love how I love your takes that you are so hard on, and they just flip flop the next day. like the season's over, win a game, World Series back on.
That's right.
That's being a fan. That's being a fan. That's
being a fan.
Fun.
If you want a sports analyst up here, I'll go find somebody and they can take my spot and we can just analyze every game from a pitch by pitch perspective, and we can do that. But nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear the reactionary fan. Listen, I'm not a smart guy. I'm a dummy. I'm a silly boy. But when I come out there and I say Ian Jabot's a silly little British guy, I'm going to say it. If he blows a game, I'm going to call him a Brit. That's what I'm going to do.
We don't have chat power rankings, do we, on this beloved Friday?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, we do. We do have chat power rankings.
Yep. You ready to go?
All right. I'm gonna give you the modus operandi of how we're gonna finish this show. We're gonna start off with chat power rankings. We're then gonna go in the vault, and then we'll wrap up this show once and for all because we got a lot of stuff to do today.
Yep.
So without further ado, Elliot Rearing, give us the chat power rankings.
A lot of people in the chat earlier today were not happy that I was giving out chat power rankings, but I'm the best objectively at this. Objectively.
Correct.
So here we go. Number 5, he had a great week. He's the most active on Twitter. He's always promoting the chat. I'd say he's the staple of the chat. And this is Ricky Logan. Ricky Logan, he's been in the chat for months, for years. God knows how long he's been there. He tweets nonstop. This is an ambassador of the chat. I love Ricky Logan. All right, number 4, Natty Ron. Natty Ron is going to come out there and he's going to yell at me about talking about sports. Whenever I get on a story tangent, whenever Reid's talking about his mustache, whenever Casey's talking about murdering cows, he's going to come in the chat. He's going to say, everybody, let's get back to sports. This is a sports talk show. It's a serious sports talk show. I respect Natty Ron. Natty Ron, you are number 4 this week. Congratulations. It comes with no prize. Number 3, Mark Fetters. I think Mark Fetters is a legend. Mark Fetters, I've done some research on Mark Fetters' Twitter account. Mark, I love Mark. I want Mark to know that. I can't look at the chat right now because I'm doing this.
Bonk.
Mark, you have almost as many tweets as I have in about 6 years, 7 years, 10 years. I think it's 10 years. 2014 when I had it. 9 years less time. Mark, you are a specimen. You are impressive. You are my guy. Mark Fetters, you are number 3 on the chat this week. Number 2. Chi-Town Real Estate. Chi-Town Real Estate is a legend. He pays for my salary. Every day he's giving in super chats left and right. This guy's a champion. He's a warrior. He lives in Chicago. My only regret about Chicago is not being able to visit Chi-Town Real Estate. But he's number 2 this week. Chi-Town, you're amazing. And number 1, without further ado, perhaps the greatest chatter to ever exist. This is unbiased, of course. This is Jerome Hunter. This is Mouse Cop. Mouse Cop, I love Mouse Cop more than anybody. Mouse Cop is in the chat every day, no matter what, rain or shine. Mouse is well deserving of the number 1 spot. I love Mouse Cop. Reid loves Mouse Cop.
Yeah.
Mouse Cop hates Reid, though.
He does hate me. Listen, I know you guys all hate me. That's okay. I sit up here. I try to do my best. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's day. I'm not trying to give everyone. Listen, look what you guys do to me. I sweat so much up here. Look at that. I sweat so much. You guys just get to me. It was tough today in the chat. I'm playing victim again. Speaking of which, speaking of someone who's constantly in the chat, I know Everett was supposed to have a child this week.
I believe he did. It was a girl.
It's a girl, had a baby girl.
Yes.
Shout out Everett. Listen, Nutcutter Nation, getting a new member. Shout out Everett. I'm gonna send him a message later on. But congratulations to everyone in the chat power rankings. We're gonna wrap this show up with some picks. It is the first full week of professional and college football. It's a beautiful time. If you still like betting on baseball, you can bet on baseball. It's awesome. It is truly awesome. But Casey, do we got the stinger ready for In the Vault? Am I throwing too much on you as a producer?
No. Just give me 1 second.
I'll give you 3, 2, 1. Half a second.
Here we go.
Quarter of a second. Here we go.
0.1.
In the Vault.
In my thing, but I just messed it up.
All right, In the Vault. I've got 2 picks for you guys. The first pick is going to be everyone is sleeping on the Crimson Tide. Everyone thinks that the Crimson Tide and Nick Saban are done. 7-point favorites this week against Texas. Take the Crimson Tide. And then secondly, hammer it. This is the super whale, mega wax whale play. Boost rocket to the moon. Super play. Whole bankroll on this one. Bengals cover this week against the Cleveland Browns.
I like it.
Elliot,
Tonight, you're going to bet on the Reds, minus 126 in the greatest sportsbook known to man, Betford Sportsbook. Shout out Betford Sportsbook. It's great value, minus 120. No need for the run line. You just take the money line. Minus 120, it's enough respectable juice there to take it. On Sunday, I'm looking at Sunday. I'm going to bet every game, I think. I'm going to bet every NFL game. But I absolutely love the Rams plus 5. The Rams have been slept on for a long time now. It's Matthew Stafford's year, and he is taking on Geno Smith. Geno Smith, listen, despite what some people on the show are going to tell you, Geno Smith, top 5 quarterback, top 2 quarterback in the NFL. Shout out Casey. They're not very good. I think the Seahawks are bums. I think the Rams are going to cover 5. Mortal lock, bet your mortgage, bet of the week, bet of the month.
Well, you all know I like doing props, and I'm not going to stop giving out props. I'm looking at Sunday's game because we're all going to be watching Bengals versus Browns. I really like Joe Mixon receiving yards. It's 25 receiving yards. I think it's plus
Joe Mixon,
140.
25? All right.
Yeah, it's not bad. So I'm going to take that.
Yeah. So just as a reminder, this Sunday, Cincinnati Bengals will go live. Casey's producing that show. We had Parker Blake on earlier. Shout out to Parker Blake for coming on. He's going to be on with Game On. That'll be about midway through the fourth quarter. You'll get live reactions, and they'll break down the game afterwards, so be sure to tune into that. Should be fantastic. If you want a place to watch the game, no free ads, but we have a big old video screen here at Chatterbox Sports. It's going to be out in here in Hamilton at Hamilton's Urban Backyard. They're renting out the screen. So we'll be showing the game live. I'll be there. So if you guys want somewhere to watch the game and want to watch it with someone, well, come on out here to Hamilton. Should be a great time. But please stop calling it Cincinnati Bengals. Call it Chatterbox Bengals. My bad. Chatterbox Bengals. Have I said that the whole show?
Yeah, you said Cincinnati Bengals the whole time.
Sorry. Chatterbox Bengals.
Reid, you did a great job hosting today.
Thanks. Chatterbox Bengals. Sorry, Drew. Sorry to everyone. Mine's working a million miles a minute. Got a big day, long day here today. I got to drive up to Toledo at about 10 p.m. tonight after high school sports, and then I got to do an event, and then I got to do an event on Sunday. So it's going to be a long weekend, but we're happy to do it. But thank you guys for tuning in today. This will probably be the last time I host, so I appreciate you guys being here for that. Yeah, this has been Off the Bench. Casey, Elliot, thank you guys so much for being here with us. Shout out to Alex and the Bengal Boys. If you guys are fans of the Bengal Boys, they'll launch that show, that new song tomorrow at 9. But this has been United Dairy Farmers Off the Bench. We'll see you on Monday.